Snoochie boochie noochies.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 70 of Formidable Opponents, a show that pits three people who have known each other virtually their entire lives in a series of conversations as we argue what is best in a variety of fun, engaging, and critical pop culture topics we all debate about. I'm Randall, and with me as always, Bob and Joseph, and this week's topic is Best Kevin Smith Scene. In 1994, what a year for movies. And if you don't believe that statement, tune into TBS on a night where they're not showing basketball or professional wrestling. The Shawshank Redemption and Forrest Gump are keeping the lights on at Turner. Check out some of these big hits from that year. Pulp Fiction, Speed, The Professional, The Lion King, Natural Born Killers, Ed Wood, Four Weddings and a Funeral, Quiz Show, Interview with a Vampire, The Crow, Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask. Hey, if your name was Jim Carrey, or if you are an emo goth kid, this was a pretty huge year for you. One movie stood apart during this maverick filmmaking era where independent projects were all the rage. A movie written and directed and produced and acted in by Kevin Smith, a young filmmaker inspired by other trailblazers like Jim Jarmusch, Spike Lee, and Richard Linklater. Kevin Smith was perfect for the era. An era where TV, film, and music was focused on Gen Xers out in the real world. MTV itself had a whole reality series dedicated to it. On TV, we had Friends, and in movies, we had Singles and Reality Bites, all showing a sanitized aspect of that era. We had the wanderlust, the unadorned, struggling 20-somethings looking for love, careers, coffee, and great music. These characters were searching for purpose and prosperity, and they were just like us, just way better looking. Enter a true voice for the rest of us. Enter Kevin Smith. When asked about his debut, Smith said, "I arrived at the perfect moment between filmmaking and YouTubing. I was the last through the door where they said, hey, this kid has made something. Isn't it incredible? 5 years later, the floodgates would have opened and there would have been a billion Kevin Smiths. Timing was everything." Smith, a self-proclaimed idiot kid, gave the rest of us idiot kids something we could relate to. What he gave us were unconventional ways to feel good about ourselves and the company we keep, even though most of us didn't look straight out of a Gap ad. He was a trendsetter.
Speak for yourself.
He was a trendsetter whose unique dialogue is smart and distinct. A stoner Aaron Sorkin of sorts. A filmmaker that can capture a mood even without a roster of A-list talent. Maybe that's the secret, the synergy, the charm. Old friends coming together to solve problems we can all relate to. Obsessions, imperfections, and hilarious observations. Strangers who we want to be around long past 90 minutes. This week on Formidable Opponents, we talk about the best Kevin Smith scene. As always, I'm joined by two guys who weren't even supposed to be here today. Bob and Joseph, how are you guys doing?
Two guys who almost weren't here today. Let's just say that.
Never go ask to mouth.
So, Joseph, could you elaborate on that?
Yeah,
It was a late night last night.
yeah, no, it's no problem. Yeah, if you know, due to weather in before Game 3
The World Series.
Game 7 would have been yesterday because of everything got pushed back. If we had gone to Game 7,
Would have been today.
That would have been tonight, and that's what we would have been fucking doing.
Thank God for Jordan Alvarez hitting that 3-run home run and setting this shit. And
I mean, I don't know if we would have like done something in the afternoon. It kind of would have been half-assed.
Yeah, we would have a lot of drinking.
because but let's just say things worked out. And we're here.
It worked out very nice.
We're here and we're happy, and I'm just feeling great, man. Feeling really great.
I'm glad you're feeling great. I was hurting this morning.
Dude, I woke up like
nothing good. Coffee and Advil and a spicy breakfast taco couldn't fix them.
I woke up and I didn't even remember going to sleep. I was like,
damn vampire.
Wow, I guess I went to bed. What time is it? I looked at my phone and it was like 9:30 and I was like, what the fuck is this? I went back to sleep.
Must be nice.
So we want to take a moment to congratulate the Houston Astros. I'm not a fan. Bob and Joseph are. So
yeah, of course.
He
likes the Pittsburgh Pirates, by the way. Pittsburgh Pirates, like, awesome Caps. They just haven't done anything since Barry Bonds was there.
But congratulations go out to the Astros, and of course, Dusty Baker. The guy once partied with Jimi Hendrix. By the way, so love Dusty Baker, man.
I was so happy that I mean I know we're not trying to talk about this so much, but
I am.
that was one of the things that, yes, they're my team, they're mine and Bob's team, but really wanted that one for guys like Dusty, for guys like Martin Maldonado and
Mancini, their first baseman that he fought
Mancini.
back to cancer,
that's
and
a
he's
good
going to
story,
play
yeah.
again. Yeah,
Excellent.
Michael Brantley, guys that have been playing for. They're getting towards the end of their career, and they didn't have one yet.
On a great note, guys, I know
Castro.
all our we have a lot of fans, and they always think of Joe. Joseph's like, the laid back one, the one that, he's very reserved and very quiet. You should have seen him last night. He was fucking pacing. The last 2 innings, couldn't sit.
No,
pacing
like,
back and forth,
dude.
down, leaning up and taking deep breaths. And I was telling
Dude, I didn't
like. If he passes out, you're giving him mouth to mouth. I'll do the CPR.
Just don't go ass to mouth.
Yeah, just don't go ass to mouth.
I think like we were standing before Jordan hit. We were standing before Jordan hit the home run.
You were pacing. I was standing stretching my legs.
I never sat down until it was over. Shout out to real quick. I'm sorry. Shout out to Bob's son. He gave me I was as Bob said, I was losing my mind. I went up to him and I said, "Hey, little man, I need some positive vibes." And he gave me a hug. And I said, "Thank you, buddy. I love you." And I walked away. And then home run happened and everything happened. It was just so shout out to Bob's son, man.
Good job. Good job, buddy. Good job, buddy.
The Astros, wonderful teammates. I mean, when you have half the team having to translate for the other half of the team, and I mean, that's just amazing. No, it's just great scouting, I should say. I mean, they found these guys everywhere. So,
yeah.
I mean, just a phenomenal run for the past 6 years. But on to Kevin Smith, guys. Because
Kevin Smith, my man.
For those, hopefully they sat through the sports chat and they stuck with us.
They're like, I thought this was a show about Kevin Smith, you jerks.
So, guys, how were you introduced to Kevin Smith's films? Do you have a story?
It was you.
You.
Oh, okay.
You introduced us. I believe
Clerks.
you took Clerks. This is back in the day on VHS. No, I think it was DVD. You brought the DVD to my house, my parents' house at the time, and we sat around and watched it. And I had never seen Clerks before. What's fucked up is I think I had seen Dogma first. Like, I was a big fan. I saw Dogma. I loved Dogma. And then you were like, yeah, well, he came out with Clerks first. And we were, that's when you were still kind of doing the film school thing, Rand. And we were talking and I was really into that too, and writing and all that good stuff that you were doing and we were doing. And I remember I just fell in love with the movie, the way he shot it, the way it was written, the dialogue, how clever and smart and fucking hilarious. And it was like clever and smart and subtle, but then it had a lot of dick and fart jokes, which is I always find hilarious. So I think thank you for that, because it got me really into Kevin Smith and his style of directing and writing and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. Yeah, I was part of that night. I don't think I knew anything about him prior to this, but I know, like Bob said, you were doing your film school stuff, and so I know this movie Clerks meant something to you because of what you were doing at the time, what you were going to school for, and I know it had an impression on you, it made a big enough impression on you that you wanted to share it with us. And I do think, honestly, like I probably, because I was dumb and stupid, might have been like, fucking black and white movie, like why the fuck, but then watching it, yes, like it was hilarious, and yeah, and since then, like it's very much, he can't do the movie. We'll get into it later. I mean, the movies are different now, but yeah, I was hooked on that. I was hooked on Kevin Smith movies.
I will tell you my story. By the way, film school, I went with every intent on finishing a degree in film, but I took so many wrong classes and I never met with my advisor. I ended up with a journalism degree, and I had to take like Tai Chi for my last class because I needed an elective. So yeah, I didn't get a film degree.
You could pull off those yoga pants though.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, with me, I could remember who introduced me to Kevin Smith. It was a guy by the name of John Gonzalez. He was in my my courses in college. And he was not Tai Chi, the film course. Well, he was in the media courses I took, and he was an older student. He was about 8 or 9 years older than the rest of us. So he had his own house. We would go and hang out at his place, and we'd watch The Simpsons and, just hang out or whatever. And I was looking through his VHS collection and I knew what Clerks was, but I had not watched the film. And I said, "Hey, is this funny?" He's like, "Dude, you got to borrow it. You got to watch it. Check it out." And I remember I borrowed it for about a week and I just rewatched that thing about 3 or 4 times because it was so different, so funny. This like stream of consciousness chatter. Clerks was like a magic trick. It was just so authentic and earnest. And it was just like nothing like I had ever seen before. The black and white I thought was going to be a turnoff because I was like, well, it just seems too indie, too cheap. But the dialogue is what hooked me in. The 90s indie film movement and the cultural impact. But Kevin Smith just, even though he wasn't much of a director, quote unquote, he was a great writer and he had his friends pulling this together. And it was just, I don't think there's anything like it. Have you guys seen anything like this movie?
No, man. I think it was the 2 movies that stood out at the time was Clerks and then El Mariachi from Robert Rodriguez. His film debut where he like got his friends and the townspeople and kind of threw shit together to make this indie film, and it worked out really, really well. I think, I don't know, man, Clerks kind of stands out. I know there was a lot of movies at the time that were kind of, they kind of try to fit with the times. There's a lot of good music. There's a great soundtrack, a lot of grunge music, great soundtrack for this one. And I think it just fit like the mold, the characters, the style of the types of people or teens or, not teens, but, just out of high school, 19 through 22 type of thing. It was a great movie, dude. I don't know. It fit like a glove to me. I
think at the time, 94, no, I can't really think of anything that was like it. I'm pretty sure
third grade.
Yeah. So, well, we didn't watch it till later, but I guess nothing. I hadn't seen anything like it, and it was very, like you said, the dialogue heavy but funny. Nothing too over the top, obviously, because of when it was filmed black and white. But and that's what was great about it.
One thing I wanted to mention, I forgot to mention that. It reminded me, the dialogue and the jokes reminded me so much of my favorite comedian, George Carlin. And, me being a young kid, my grandfather, he used to sit me down and he'd be like, "Hey, watch this comedy hour with me." And, George Carlin was a little filthy. He was very funny, very smart. And, he would sit there and laugh and he would let me watch George Carlin with him. So when I saw this movie and hearing the dialogue and the jokes, I was thinking like, this is George Carlin, man. It reminded me so much about him, which is really cool because George Carlin ends up, coming out in Dogma and he comes out in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. So that's pretty cool that I want to say Kevin Smith said he was a huge fan of his and heavily influenced his writing. So that's what it reminded me of, man, and I think that's why I was drawn to it so much.
I think when you look at the 90s indie film movement, and as we mentioned before, the cultural impact, check out some of these titles. Clerks, Before Sunrise, Virgin Suicide, Pulp Fiction, Welcome to the Dollhouse, Dazed and Confused, Swingers, Kicking and Screaming, Kids, The Basketball Diaries, El Mariachi, Bottle Rocket. Going to the video store and discovering a new treasure every week was going on at this time.
Basketball Diaries was fucked up, bro.
It's a great movie, though.
Never looked at Leo the same.
Actually, now that you mentioned it, I probably Swingers. Yeah, I probably Swingers. I'd compare. Swingers was the color version. But Clerks takes place in mainly one location. Yeah, but
the great dialogue,
the buddy movie.
Yeah.
That's another one you introduced us to, Ren. Good job.
Yeah.
2 for 2.
2 for 2.
2 for 2.
I did not ask this question seeking aplomb.
He's blushing, folks. He's blushing.
Swingers is one of my favorite movies, dude. I love that movie.
Also because you're in love with Roller Girl.
Who is it? It was like the 1970s. You had Martin Scorsese with Mean Streets, Francis Ford Coppola with The Godfather, Brian De Palma with Carrie, Hal Ashby, Harold and Maude, Robert Altman, The Long Goodbye, Steven Spielberg, Jaws, and George Lucas, Star Wars. And then the 80s, we kind of had we had some filmmakers rise up, but everything was, so, lavish, I guess. And you had all this just indie filmmakers galore coming out, and it felt like a movement. It felt like you had like a class, like a draft class of indie filmmakers coming out. And I know Clerks had ended up being in a lot of stores. I think it was one of the most rented titles of 1994, also one of the most stolen. And you had these cool, slick movies capturing this maverick time. And you're kind of seeing it again with movies like Uncut Gems, Midsommar, I don't know how you pronounce it. Ingrid
French, Miss Amar.
Ingrid Goes West, Parasite. So we're kind of thinking, I mean, we're kind of going back and hearkening to that time. And we all thought, you know, it was a time we all thought we could write scripts. I mean, I took a screenwriting class with, I'm name dropping here, Kim Henkel, who co-wrote Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Thought he was going to produce one of my scripts, but never happened. Anyway, but I mean, it was a time where we all thought we could be writers. Yes. I mean, it had a good soundtrack. I mean, Bad Religion, Alice in Chains, Soul Asylum. So everything about this movie, when it hit it was just Gen X galore, and it was just hitting on every level. Next question, guys. Kevin Smith had a good handful of movies that were panned, that were just critics did not like. Why do critics come down on him harsher than they would like his contemporaries like Tarantino, Spike Lee, Richard Linklater, Noah Baumbach? Why is Smith the whipping boy?
I think that I mean it's a bit unfair, but I think that he took big risks and he kind of went a different direction with a lot of his. Like a Tarantino movie is a Tarantino fucking movie. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But I think that he hit really well with Mallrats. He hit really well with Dogma, even though he got a lot of shit from, you know, the Catholic Church and from religious folks and all that. even though he says at the beginning, you know, God has a sense of humor. Hey, look at the platypus. But I think like him going with like Jersey Girl and Red State, they're kind of like off the cuff for him. I don't know, man. They just, at least to me, they didn't feel like a Kevin Smith movie. I know there's only so many Snoochie Boochie type of jokes you can make, but they're fucking hilarious. And, you know, I think it was kind of that universe that he created with, you know, Jay and Silent Bob in all the movies and stuff like that. I think that, and like all the reoccurring characters, I love that. And I think that Jersey Girl didn't quite fit that. Neither did Red State. Like neither one of those movies really did it for me. You know, I saw them and they're okay, but it just didn't feel like a Kevin Smith movie to me.
Well, I don't know who two of those people are that you mentioned, but but anyway, no, I don't know. Maybe it's because it was a stoner comedies, the stoner humor, the stoner like Bob said,
went away from that
dick and fart jokes. No, but like the movies that he did make that were, you know, nobody gave. You know, I don't think people gave. Let me revise this. Hold on. Are we talking like the later movies or like
the later
things
movies.
like Clerks 2?
No, like the later movies, like how he did
Red the stuff State, out of like, oh, okay, those
Jersey Girl.
I'm sorry.
He did. He even did a new one with.
But you got to consider, like, I'm sorry, Bob. You got to consider movies like Mallrats. Mallrats was a subject of a lot of critical derision, and Jay and Silent Bob were just like these heliocentric figures in all the movies, sort of being panned about. You know, they're all about stoner jokes. And, you know, it was Mallrats that really got trashed. He came back with Chasing Amy and Dogma, which were great. And then once he did Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, it kind of went on the downward slope for critics, at least. And maybe not for Kevin Smith. He did okay still.
Yeah, I think with those, it just felt more like trying to just keep the characters alive or introduce them to a brand new audience, you know, and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I thought it was extremely funny. Yeah. Clerks 2 was funny as well. Clerks 3 I haven't seen. I know I've heard it's not as great as the originals, I'm sure. Then the Jane Silent Bob reboot I heard wasn't as good. You know, much like most reboots, anyways. But you know, it happens, man. It happens. I mean, he did have a good run. He have some really great comedies.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen like the Tusk or the Red State. I know he directed Cop Out with
Bruce
Willis and
Tracy Morgan.
Didn't he hate that experience with Bruce Willis?
Yeah, he did. He still speaks highly of Bruce Willis as a hero of his growing up because they're both Jersey guys. But it was a difficult sort of job environment. But you got to consider Bruce Willis was going through some stuff and probably getting sick at the time.
Yeah. Well, I think with a film like Jersey Girl, which is not a bad movie, I don't think it is. At the time, maybe he was like, okay, he did Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, Jane, Silent Bob Strike Back. What more? At the time, maybe he thought, what more can I do? Like, I've maybe run these characters into the ground, so let me do something different. And Jersey Girl was apparently, you know, panned, as you say. Didn't think it was that bad, but then he comes back with Clerks 2 after that. So it's like, you know, he kind of goes back to the milk
to the roots, right.
So I didn't think they were bad movies. I just think like that, you know, it's gonna just. The earlier stuff was the stoner dick and fart jokes, and maybe he thought he needed to change, and maybe he doesn't. I don't think he did, because like these movies, like these are fucking cult classic movies. Like, we're talking about Clerks, we're talking about, you know, Mallrats, and you know, Chasing Amy didn't really do it for me, but like I think that was his.
I like Chasing
I
Amy.
love Chasing Amy.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, it's good. No, it's good, but it's. It didn't. I don't know. I was looking more to laugh.
It didn't do it for you as much as like Clerks and Dogma did.
Although I love Dogma. Dogma was awesome. I thought it was a great movie. I mean, I was just talking to you guys about this earlier. These movies are they're cult classics or iconics. Like, can't find Dogma anywhere. Can't find it.
I can't believe that. Yeah,
on streaming services.
So you bought it the $70 DVD?
No. I'm looking. I'm not gonna pay that much money for an out of print Blu-ray, but I'll see what I can find.
Mallrats was his sophomore, movie.
Yeah.
Clerks was well regarded, and sort of he had this lapse, kind of like, okay, we gave this indie filmmaker money, and he fucked it up. He made this movie that was critically panned, didn't do so well in movies. It probably ate shit for about 5 years, and I liked Mallrats. I would have recasted the two main characters, the Jeremy London and I think Claire Forlani is the female lead. But Mallrats to me took a while to appreciate. Were you guys on board with Mallrats immediately, or was it one of those movies you had to watch a few times?
It was one of those movies I had to watch a few times. Like I still don't. It's not one of my favorites of his, but it's a good movie. Like if it's on, I'll watch it and I'll crack up with it, of course, because it's a funny movie. But if I have a choice, it's Clerks, Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Clerks 2. Like those really fit. Dogma is my favorite out of any movie that he's made. It's the funniest in my opinion and the best in my opinion. Clerks is a really, 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 really close number 2, but Dogma I loved. It's amazing.
What was the question?
What time is it?
Your thoughts? We're now back to ordinary time. We're on God's time, so we're all adjusting right now. What were your thoughts on? What were your thoughts on?
Hold on. Speaking of God in this situation, if it's Alanis Morissette, why the fuck would she date Uncle Joey? She could have any person in the world, and she's God, and she dates Uncle fucking Joey.
God has a sense of humor, like you
said. Apparently, likes puppets and skee ball.
Josie, your thoughts on Mallrats?
Mallrats was good. I mean, I think it was like one of those. I like how what did they present it as? Like Jay and Silent Bob in color. Like it was this thing, and then their introduction into the movie where they're like at the in front of the pet store. And the whole dance thing. I liked it. I thought it was interesting that he went from a movie like Clerks, where I didn't see it as so much as a romantic comedy,
right,
to Mallrats. To me, was his romantic comedy.
It was
with
his John Hughes
humor.
movie.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I mean, I like it. It's not. I'll obviously, like I said, I'll put it before Chasing Amy anytime. I haven't watched it in a long time. If it comes on, I'll most definitely watch it because I think the characters are funny. I love the different hijinks that go on throughout the movie, the situation that's happening in it. But I mean, for me, it's always going to be like Bob said too, Clerks, Dogma. I love Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I love that movie. I even, Clerks 2, I really love that one too as well.
Tell him, Steve Dave. Okay, so
tell him, Steve Dave.
I do have a funny Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back story. I had met this girl online. I think at the time I was maybe 23. She was maybe a year or two younger than me, and she had never heard of Jay and Silent Bob. And I was like, how can you have not? You're my age. You're like maybe 2-3 years younger than me. You have to have known who Jay and Silent Bob are. Have you seen Clerks? No. Have you seen Mallrats? So I was like, well, first date, bad idea to just go to the movie, right? You probably want to, but we just went to the movie and I never heard from her again. And I know she hated the movie because she would look at me every time there was like
to dodge the bullet there. You dodged the bullet, right?
I did big time. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Oh, okay.
He would look at me and this guy's up there talking about the Clipmaster and all this other stuff, and Clip Commander. And she's looking at me like, you dragged me out to see.
Come down to business. This is what I do.
Fucking Jason Mewes.
Yeah, definitely dodged the bullet there. So let's go on to our honorable mentions, guys. What are some of your favorite Kevin Smith scenes?
I had a few. So obviously, I have Happy Scrappy Hero Pup.
Yes.
So small. I think the scene is only like maybe 2 minutes. So it was as much as I think it's funny and hilarious. Like I couldn't like pick it, but yes, I think I can't remember. I did it. I checked it the other day real quick. I'm sorry, I'm taking up time. I think it was at least, no, I was like, how many movies did he list off? And I went and I watched the scene, and I swear, I think it was like 20 movies that he ordered.
Yeah, dude.
What was your favorite title? Do you have one?
I don't want to say it on air.
Men Alone 5, the KY connection.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. What was that movie you wanted, man?
I love it. Yeah, I love it. The easiest one, no, I'm not gonna say it.
In case anybody hasn't seen it, so he's naming off a bunch of title names.
Dirty movies. And the cleanest one is the cleanest sounding one is kind of the dirtiest one. It's the name of a song.
Which song?
Come on, Eileen.
Come on,
okay,
Eileen.
He said it then. Never mind.
I'm sure he said a lot worse.
But okay, so Happy Scrappy Hero Pup. I got I don't watch movies also from Clerks. The whole when Randall's not helping the lady, and he's kind of just like, oh, what about these two? And oh, those suck. You weren't even paying attention. I got Randall breaking down to Dante as well in Clerks 2. I thought it was a great scene. Clerks 2 that I thought Clerks 2 was a good, should have been the way to end the Clerks series. And I thought, how that one ended when Randall breaks down, because his friends, leaving. I thought that was great. It showed a little bit of, it showed Kevin Smith growing up, I guess, the donkey show.
I'm the sexy stud.
Ooh, cake.
Oh, gotta finish. I love that. He's fucking hilarious, dude.
Kelly can be a guy's name too.
Hopefully people know what these movies are about. They're like throwing out lines.
I've not Googled sexy Kelly and the sexy stud Clerks 2. That's hilarious.
I also have the train scene from Dogma. I thought it was good. The scene where they're on the train and Bethany's talking to Bartleby about when she lost her faith, and I just thought it was it was a great scene.
Yeah,
great scene.
And Affleck's so dramatic.
He did a good job. They did a good job together. That scene was pretty powerful. And of course the robbery scene in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Both the whole robbery scene. Both sections. The guy's going to go steal the monkey. The girl's going to go steal the jewel. The stuff before it, where they click commander. All the whole thing. I thought it was hilarious.
We steal monkeys all the time.
Bob, what about you? Your honorable mentions.
What I almost picked was the diner scene in Dogma, where Bethany's trying to convince Jay and Silent Bob to take her to New Jersey, and they mentioned the whole John Hughes, and they went to that one town in Illinois. Sherman, Illinois, and you know what? Doesn't exist. There's a bunch of hot chicks and a bunch of, what does he say? Like a bunch of pussies that live there. We could be living like fat kings. Doesn't exist. I love that. I love how she's trying to be serious, and then he'll talk, and then Jay always throws out like some kind of sexual remark or a sex remark. Like the writing is really, really funny in that scene. The Clerks 2, the back and forth at Lord of the Rings, one ring to rule them all. I love the back and forth with you fucking nerds. Like how the Star Wars guy, Randall's calling out the fucking Lord of the Rings guys for being nerds, and it's kind of like back and forth. I thought that was hilarious. Another scene in Dogma that had me dying laughing today is it's a really serious scene where Chris Rock reveals to Bethany that she's related to Jesus Christ, and she's going over everything and talking about it. You're the great granddaughter of Jesus Christ, and he's explaining all this, and it's a really, really serious tone. Like she realizes that she's related to Christ, and this is something she has to do, and it's like a real serious tone. And out of nowhere, Jay yells out, "So does that mean you're black?" Because in the movie, Jesus Christ is supposed to be black, according to Chris Rock. So I thought that was fucking funny. It really, really had me laughing. He says, "So that make you part black?" He says something like that, and it just had me dying laughing. And Clerks, I like in Clerks where the guy that works for the gum company, he's there fucking starting a rally and has them throwing cigarettes at
Shuli's.
Shuli's gum. Not even supposed to be here today. I thought that those scenes were hilarious, but there was a lot. There really is a lot. We could probably go on and talk a lot of scenes, but I love that scene. Oh, the hockey scene. Sorry, hockey scene on top of the building, taking the break. I thought that was really cool.
What does he tell him? He goes, "Anybody seen?
Hey, you see a ball down there? The biggest two you've ever seen, Dingleberry." Yeah, fucking hilarious, dude.
My honorable mentions, I have the Chasing Amy, the I fucking love her scene with Jason Lee and Ben Affleck, where Jason Lee is showing the Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, and he's showing that was just so. I thought Jason Lee made the leap there. He went from like former pro skateboarder to like in Mallrats he was very funny and charming, but I mean his acting chops, and I mean credit to Ben Affleck. I think Ben Affleck set him up like a good point guard. I think if you compare Lee's chemistry with Affleck versus the chemistry he had with Jeremy London in Mallrats, I mean, you could tell that Ben Affleck made Jason Lee a better actor. And Jason Lee's one of those guys who, I mean, I love seeing him on screen. Loved him on Almost Famous. Wish he had a bigger career. I mean, I'm sure he's happy, but, Alvin and the Chipmunks and all that stuff afterwards.
Well, I mean, he was on My Name is Earl.
My Name is Earl. I love that show.
My Name is Earl was
awesome.
hilarious.
Hilarious.
Great
hilarious.
show.
I was pissed off that it ended being canceled.
That was a really funny show.
Like Joseph, I had the Happy Scrappy Hero Pup scene where I know that Jeff Anderson was very uncomfortable saying all those titles, and he needed the room cleared because he was like, I'm going to try to do this in one take, I think is what I remember.
Yeah, well, I love it because they're showing him with the woman there with her daughter asking, and he's about to say the titles, and it cuts to just him solo. Yeah. And so I think he didn't want her standing with the child next to him, so he named off the titles.
The Julie Dreyer funeral scene in Clerk, where the dialogue is going back and forth, they're playing Shooting Star underneath, and they're talking about this guy breaking his neck by trying to suck his own dick, and it just the one I almost went with was Mallrats, the Truth or Date scene with Jason Lee again playing Brody. The one part that whole scene is gold, but the one part I had to point out was when he gives a speech about his uncle where the airplane was going to crash. And he starts beating off, and he said then the entire airplane starts jerking it. And they were about to crash, but then the plane gained altitude and they all landed. And then so Gil Hicks is like, well, did he come? Like, he's like,
funny,
that's a personal story, sir.
It's fucking funny.
That scene, I mean, that line alone was just, and then of course Ben Affleck, I'm sorry, I wasn't a fan of the Jay and Silent Bob reboot. I thought it wasn't good at all, but Ben Affleck gives a speech as Holden McNeil, reprising his role from Chasing Amy, where he talks about fatherhood. That is a damn good speech, and Ben Affleck knocked it out of the park. If you're going to watch that movie, at least watch the part. If you're not going to watch it, at least watch the part with Ben Affleck where he does a cameo as Holden McNeil. He does a great speech about fatherhood, really heartfelt. And then lastly, like you, Joseph, I had the jail cell scene in Clerks 2, Randall's speech about, you're betraying me. I thought that was the best acting either of those two guys, Brian O'Halloran and Jeff Anderson did, because in Clerks, they were very raw. That scene, I thought they both knocked it out of the park. I thought they were really good in both those scenes. I mean, that scene.
I'm surprised nobody mentioned the old Jewish guy that asked to use the restroom, and he's like, hey, you have the rough toilet paper. I see you have the good stuff back there. And I take a roll, then, hey, can I borrow one of those dirty magazines? Oh, that one. Like, what the fuck, man? I thought that scene's hilarious because he walks away.
Oh, the other one. The girls have bigger.
The girls have bigger breasts than that one. Yeah, I thought that was a funny scene, dude.
He just hands him some random magazine. No, the other one.
In the restroom. Oh my god, hilarious.
Now you're getting picky.
He ends up dying in the restroom. Dante's ex-girlfriend ends up, having sex.
With her,
She's traumatized. Yeah, it took a turn for the dark right there. It was just crazy.
By the way, I'm glad they didn't end that movie the way that they had the test scene audience.
When somebody comes in and shoots
I thought that was so horrible. I was like, when I saw that alternate ending, I was like, I would have hated this movie had they done that to Dante.
Nobody mentioned Berserker.
That's what I was going to say right now.
Nobody mentioned Berserker.
Nobody mentioned Olaf.
He just said he's making
Olaf metal.
I don't know, but this guy's a character. Oh, I met a girl like.
My love for you is ticking clock.
Love it.
Berserker.
He's in some band. Fuck your Yankee Blue Jeans.
Fuck your Yankee Blue Jeans or something.
I like how on the soundtrack though, before one of the scenes when they're doing a transition, there is like I know it came out the songs in the background, like an actual like band playing, and you hear like the Berserker. I love it.
Get a Berserker t-shirt.
That's beautiful, man.
That's gonna be my next shirt. Berserker. Release the Berserker.
So we're going with our selections next. Joe, so you're up. Best all-time Kevin Smith scene.
All right.
Good luck describing this one.
I got it.
It's probably the funniest scene of all time.
I got this. So I read this description of the scene that I thought was funny. So I'll say what it says. It says the worst part about having a girlfriend is the eventual conversation about the guys who came before you. So what would you
literally?
So what would you say to her when eventually you found out there were 37 of them? Or I'm sorry, 36 of them. Anyway.
I'm 37.
I thought that was a great description of it. Anyway, I think this scene was the one that got me hooked into the rest of this movie, and eventually the whole View-esque universe. What makes this scene even funnier is the almost wholesome moment before it, prior to it, when Veronica and Dante are both on the floor, and he's having a shitty day because he's not supposed to be there, as he says, and she sort of like lifts him up, lifts his spirits, visiting him, and that happens. It's a really nice scene. Like, H just picks him up. Anyways, that scene happens before this one. Veronica and Dante run into one of her former lovers, and maybe she said too much. Maybe if she hadn't said anything at all.
Snowballed him.
Snowball. Can you tell us what a snowball is, Justin?
I might
just Google it. Google it.
I mean, the conversation could have been avoided. Let's just say that. But it's a movie, so we'll continue. Again, calling him Snowball, and then Dante being curious about it, and then learning the definition of said term, and why she knows what said term is. It turns into this, like, he said, she said small argument, which leads to, the information about how many men she's performed a certain act with. Not the snowball, but
just Norway.
The reaction of the amount is hilarious dialogue, and then realizing he's 37. I think that Brian O'Halloran,
yes,
and Marilyn, I don't never know how to pronounce her last name. I'll just
Monroe?
say Igalotti or something.
Yes.
I think that they played this scene perfect. And I thought, and you just goes back to what you said earlier, Randy. I thought for two actors who were both at the early stages of the career, believe this was Brian's first movie. I believe this was Marilyn's second movie. I thought they did a great job of selling this argument and making it funny. I thought they really did a great job. And so kind of a little bit different from what you said earlier. Although, yes, the two Dante and Randall characters, the actors matured way much more in Clerks 2. But anyway, I'd also like to point out the fact that people are still in the store while this whole argument is going on. I loved it. The shots to different things, like the cat on the cat on the counter. There was a real funny scene prior to all this when Snowball is leaving. You see him in a reflection of the mirror. He runs into like a display, and he's character, dude. He's like a
funny stoner.
Yeah. I loved how the lady came up to them in the middle of the argument to pay for something, and he's still doing his job while he's waiting for her to respond. I thought it was hilarious. Eventually, the guy buying the diapers, the in a row guy.
Yeah, that's the funniest line. You believe my girlfriend sucked 37 dicks in a row? That's the funniest line from the entire movie, dude. Funniest line from the movie.
Can you imagine if you, and I've worked at a convenience store. I worked at a convenience store when I got straight out of high school for a while when I was going to school. Can you imagine if you were at the store buying beer or something, and the guy or girl working there just randomly tells you some kind of information like that? Like, his response was perfect. Like, I don't know how I would have responded, but just I'm cute in a row. Like, perfect. Like, I don't know who wrote. I mean, obviously Kevin Smith wrote that, but yeah. And then later, towards the end, the argument still kind of back and forth before she walks out. Every time I kiss you, I'm gonna taste it. 36 other guys. I was like, hilarious. And then of course the end where Veronica's walking out and Dante yells at her, try not to suck any dick on your way to the parking lot. And the guy sitting there is like, oh,
he takes off walking. Yes.
Hey, you come back here.
Come back here.
I think this is his trademark scene. I know it's one he's very proud of. I know he would wear a lot of clothing with the number 37 on, like shirts and caps. Yeah. It's very prominent. I don't know if he still does it now. I think he still does. And I think that this scene is kind of his legacy for the View-esque universe and these movies in general. Not so much the Jersey Girls, the Tusk, and all the other ones. But so yeah, I went with this one. What do you guys think?
I'm glad you picked this scene because we had to talk
Yeah.
About the scene for 37 minutes. It's going to feel like, so I'm going to voluntarily refrain from mentioning the sexual act they are honing in on this scene, much like I involuntarily avoided it much through college. Anyway, I think Kevin Smith also introduced us to the snowballing, right? Because I remember Kevin Smith had talked about, I heard an interview recently, and he said, now you can't come up with this lingo because everybody has Google. Everybody could search stuff. He says at the time in the 90s, this was pre-internet. So if I said snowballing, everybody's going to be like, oh, wow, did you see the movie? Did you see that part where they talked about the sexual act? And now it's become associated with Clerks, Kevin Smith, and you can't do that anymore. Despite the rapid fire hilarity in the scene, I counted a good 5 laughs. I mean, it was just what makes Kevin Smith so unique is his pulse on the complexities and nuances of relationships. He's a great couples writer. And it was funny because we were at church this morning, and our kids get out of Sunday school half hour later, so we got some coffee, and I was telling my wife, I said, oh, hey, Joseph just texted his pic, and I was like, he sent the YouTube link, so we were watching it together, and I could not stop laughing. She was like, oh my God, I forgot how dirty this was.
What did the priest say?
37. No.
37.
I mean, look, this is the conversation many couples have had and can only really be avoided if you've been together with someone since maybe high school. And if you have, that's kind of like sitting in the dark corner of a room with a blanket over your head. But at least you don't have to have these conversations or think about your significant other's history, right? The customer who said in a row is the best one-liner in cinema history. And the guy, he was buying a package of Huggies diapers, which was just... And the woman, Joseph, you had mentioned how he was, still, working while she came. She was buying Vaseline and some latex gloves. So, I mean, like these little jokes.
Yeah, you got to pay attention to details.
Yeah, the 2-liter cola was priced at $1.69. I don't know if that's a joke, but I mean, there's so many Easter egg and joke juggles in here that you can't catch them all without watching them a countless number of times, probably 37 times, right? I cracked up when Veronica says, I didn't act like this when you told me how many girls you fucked. And Dante responds with, this is different. This is important.
Great response. Typical guy response, right?
I cracked up when she says, the number 36, and he was upset. And he says, does that include me? And she says, well, you're 37. And he fucking explodes when she goes one number 37.
Which is why, like I said, like the fact that this is going on while he's still working, there's customers in the store. Like, I mean, it's hilarious.
I mean, men are stupid, illogical, emotional creatures. Every time I kiss you, I taste 36 other guys was just, just hilarious. The guy that follows her in the end that you mentioned, and Dante yells, try not to suck another dick on the way over to the parking lot. That was another great part of the scene. Not part of the scene, but when Veronica comes back, and I think it's Randall who yells 37.
Oh yeah,
I mean, guys are straight trash. I mean, 37 is the perfect number because if it was 40, it would have been too much. 30 would have been too little. 35 seems like a program throwaway number. 37 was perfect. I once brought a Seahawks Sean Alexander jersey just so I could wear number 37. So it's a very contemporary scene, one of Smith's funniest, but the best, I don't know. I think it's very sort of college improv. Great for versatility. It feels theatrical. I think Smith grew to use his environment and make better scenes. I mean, Dante's point, being bothered by 37, then more than the 3 men she slept with. Like, how could you pleasure someone like that outside of me? Like, how arrogant and self-conscious do you have to be to care about these guys who predated you? Does he have a point on this? I don't know. It lowered his pathos as a lead. And yes, you want to have flaws and challenges as a lead, but being whiny and unreasonable, especially when Veronica treated him so well. I mean, she brought lasagna to his workplace. He's whining about his ex. It dropped his approval rating. And to make matters worse, he gets Rosario Dawson in Clerks 2. How unfair is that?
How is that? I don't know that because he went ass to mouth.
What do you think, Bob?
This is to me. I mean, Kevin Smith has had some great because he's a great writer. He's a very funny writer, and this is probably the funniest scene of any scene in any one of his movies. I love how, again, the overreaction from Dante, like him losing his shit was great because, the acting in this movie, everybody's like new actors, but it's real young. It's kind of a raw film, indie film. and the acting's not that great. But this scene, like his overreaction to hyperbole use, it's perfect, dude. It makes the scene, it makes the joke that much more hilarious. So yes. I really think that, I mean, you pretty much y'all have said it all. It's the funniest scene of this movie, and I think it really makes the movie so. And it's such a stupid thing, but like you said, it works out so perfectly because this is a common conversation, you know, couples have when they first start dating. Well, you know, how many people have you slept with? How many, you know, boyfriends have you had? Girlfriends have you had? Whatever the case is. So he took that and, you know, just made it extreme and ran with it with a stupid, you know, dick and fart joke. And it's just so fucking funny and hilarious the way it sets up, the way they argue. That in front of everybody in the store and outside the store, just doing that last Mel Brooks type of joke, like try not to suck any dick on the way to the parking lot. You know what I mean? The guy following after, hey, come back here. I thought that was great, very Mel Brooks-esque. It's a great scene, man. I can't. There's no argument for me about it.
Obviously, if you know anything about Kevin Smith movies and you're a fan of Kevin Smith movies, you cannot hear somebody say 37 without yourself saying 37.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I think like. It's so like it's such an iconic scene. It's why I picked it. And I mean, I know it's from his first movie, but you know, I just think it's this whole thing is taking on another life. I'm gonna go find myself a 37 shirt, and people that know when I wear that shirt, people that have seen this, they'll know. And somebody's gonna say 37, and I'm gonna get yeah, you got it, brother. You know what's going on.
Bob, what is your selection?
All right. Well, sticking with the same movie, Clerks, I think Clerks is Kevin Smith's, like, I don't know, man. It's the first movie he directed and wrote, and it was perfect. It was hilarious. I rewatched it today. It's just so funny. The scene I went with was another scene that's very similar. I mean, it's not as funny as 37, but it's very, very smart. I went with the Star Wars Death Star talk, the Death Star 2 talk, if you don't recall. Rando and Dante, you know, Rando comes in and he's like, there's something, he's like, of course he asked the common question, what'd you like better, Return of the Jedi or Empire? Empire Strikes Back, and, you know, Dante obviously he responds with Empire because it ends on the downer note. You know, Luke gets his hand cut off, finds out that Vader's his father, you know, Han Solo gets frozen and carbonite and whatever, yada, yada, yada. And the other guy's like, no, it's got to be. He says it's blasphemy, which I think is hilarious. He really do like Star Wars, and he starts talking about the Death Star, and he was like, when they first destroyed the Death Star, you know, I'm okay with it. You know, it's mainly filled with stormtroopers and all the bad guys, basically. But the second time around, you know, it was still under construction. It couldn't have been storm. Do you think stormtroopers know how to put in a toilet pipe, or he said something like that? He's like, there's construction workers and roofers and, you know, all these people working, you know, just trying to make an honest living for their families. And the rebels came in and fucking blew that shit up and killed all these innocent people. Like, he's trying to bring up, it's a stoner point, like a point you try to make when you're drinking, like somebody stupid would make when they're drinking about, you know, Star Wars, of all the scenes in Star Wars. To think of, like, you know what, they blew up the Death Star while they were trying to rebuild it. There's a lot of innocent people that got killed from, like, it's just it's a very smart and funny and a different look at one of the biggest movies in cinematic history, in Return of the Jedi. And I think that it kind of caught me off guard because it gives you that different perspective, and the writing is just so clean and so funny and so smart, and it's just like a normal, like, you know, just normal conversation talking about a movie that, you know, everybody loves, that you've watched probably a million times. You know what I noticed? It's like one of those things. So I think that it's just incredibly smart, and it's such a simple scene, but it's such a smart and well-written scene that it's caught my attention. I've always thought of it as a well-written, great fucking scene. There's just something about the writing and the subtlety in the jokes and in the writing that just it does it for me. I've always liked. I'm a huge fan of George Carlin. I'm a huge fan of Mel Brooks. What Mel Brooks does really, really well is he has that subtlety in a lot of his writing, where the jokes, like, you have to be really paying attention and how fucking smart and brilliant they are. And I thought that this was Kevin Smith, one of Kevin Smith's, like, best or well-written, brilliant little idea that he had to throw in. And it's just a throwaway scene to most people. It's just them sitting around and talking about Star Wars and Return of the Jedi. But it's just so well written, and if you pay attention to it, it's so fucking good. What do you think about it, Rand?
Great scene. You forgot to mention the roofer. A roofer listens to his heart, not his wallet. Well, he was the best part of the scene, but go ahead.
What I love about this scene, what I love about the whole movie is all this shit's going on to Dante and Randall throughout the entire movie, mostly to Dante. but there's always customers that come in and just throw in their 2 cents or like fuck with them or whatever. And I love how the roofer like, excuse me, let me give you my 2 cents on this fucking thing. I'm a roofer, and I'm like, they kind of like interrupt the scene and kind of get involved in the scene or the conversation or whatever. It happens throughout the movie, and I love every scene every time it does. And I thought his little take on it was pretty hilarious. Like, those guys knew what they were getting into. They knew they were working for the bad guys. If they got killed, they knew what the risk was involved, which I thought was very fucking funny.
I liked when the roofer is telling a story about his friend, because he had a job for a mob boss, and he said, I'm not taking this job because, my politics come into play when I do my roofing contract. So he gave the job to his friend. He said, somebody came by, there was a hit on the mob boss, and they killed my friend. And he said it's like so casually, like, that's why.
That's what he gets. You should know. A roofer goes with his instincts, or he said some shit like that.
Yeah, listens to his heart, not his wallet. I'm not much of a Star Wars geek, but if you think about it, blasting an incomplete Death Star, you are killing a lot of innocent people. I mean, you gotta think, dude. You gotta think stormtroopers have like regular job skills. Like, there's gotta be like a vocation training when you retire. I know a YouTube user pointed out about Finn, and he mentioned in The Force Awakens that Finn worked as a sanitation at Starkiller Base. So there's corporate structure, there's commerce, there's industrial urban planning on the Death Star. There's got to be, right?
Independent contractors.
That's true. Like, a guy can shoot you, but can also be hired for your plumbing, right? It's a lot like Texas if you think about it. Anyway, so this is what I miss about pre-internet conversations. Nothing epitomizes Gen X slackers like hanging out in a small group and debating movie plots. No research, no news boards or Google. It's just logic and opinion. And what I liked is, out of all of Kevin Smith's dialogue, this is the most Tarantino-esque, I think.
Yes.
I don't know. Yes, I don't,
dude.
For sure. I don't know if it's an inspiration. He could have watched Reservoir Dogs, but by then, he borrows from the pop culture dialogue and he makes it his own. A lot of movies tried to imitate Tarantino's dialogue at the time. Love in a 45, Things to Do in Denver, When You're Dead, The Immortals, The Quark Fest that was the Boondock Saints. But I think Kevin Smith got it right because he used his own world. He used geekdom and like these guys who were part of the proletariat who were just working class dogs having this conversation. A lot of cutaways. I'm sure Jeff Anderson, who was a novice actor, struggled with these monologues because they were very well written and just wordy, right? And if you notice, he never looks at Dante, and there's at least 3 or 4 cutaways. My favorite cutaway is Jay stuffing his face with the Twinkies.
with the Twinkies, the donuts. He's eating like powdered donuts in the background while they're having this conversation. He's stealing food.
Joseph, what do you think about this scene?
I really loved it too. This is another great scene, and again, I'm gonna give props to the actors. I think that they did great, and maybe that's just because I'm such a fan of the movie. I understand that they were novice actors at the time, but I think that they did great. It reminds me of what we're fucking doing right now. We're sitting and talking and debating shit and pop culture, and I've had plenty of conversations with Bob, Saturday, and he asked me something, and if I don't say what he wanted to hear, he'll say what the fuck, or like along the lines of like blasphemy, some shit like that. So I thought it was perfect. After watching it, I thought to it did make me think. It does make you like, because if you didn't think of that, you didn't think about the innocent people on the Death Star that died. So then after hearing it, you're like, well, fuck. He's right. There's this, so it has true context. I loved it, and then I love, like I said, like you mentioned, the geekdom of it. The whole deep dive into a particular topic or movie or whatever. The one being Star Wars, and yes, I like my scene, the cutaways here and there to something random. When they were showing, they did the cutaway to the roofer over here in the conversation. I thought that was perfect. I was like, the thing I love about this movie and these scenes is that these lives are happening in the middle of a store with everything going on around them. Like there is no stop to what's going on in the world around them. They're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to work. People are going to come by. People are going to hear them. They're not afraid to talk about these things, obviously.
Yeah. Back then, everybody would just speak their mind, in person. Now everybody does it on Facebook and fucking Twitter. That's what it feels like. Well, my opinion, that's what it feels like. Everybody had their own opinion, and they had to throw it out there, and they had to fuck with Dante and like and Randall had to give them how they were feeling or thinking or whatever.
And I did love how they brought in the other character, the roofer, the guy that plays the roofer, because he even had like what he says brings more argument for Dante. It was perfect. And yes, of course, I love the cutaway. I love seeing Jay. I was like, what is he fucking doing? He's doing so shady.
He's shady in the background,
stuffing his face and tweaking. Because at first you kind of think like he's paying attention. Like when you watch it, you're like, oh, he's like, it's catching his attention, and then he just starts fucking like, oh, he's looking out to see like whether or not he can eat the fucking Twinkies. So yeah, perfect, man. These two scenes, and again, this movie is just like, it's on another level. It really is.
It really did give me. I think you nailed it when you mentioned Tarantino. It gave me that when in Reservoir Dogs when they're talking Madonna. And they give you that different perspective and the fan perspective. Now you start thinking about what is that song about? It's exactly what this scene made me think of when I thought of Return of the Jedi, what Tarantino did for Madonna's Like a Virgin song. So it's just really, really, really good writing in the scene. Like it's a extremely well written scene.
I think a lot of time, me being the novice filmmaker that I was at one point, I know that a lot of those cutaways, the cutaway with a cat, the cutaway to Jay, they were probably filmed separately. A lot of those are just sort of like B-roll. So if somebody messes up on a dialogue or they have to cut away to those scenes. So that part with Jay was probably filmed for something else, and they said, okay, we need filler here because maybe Jeff or Brian messed up their lines, so we need to cut away to something. Because you notice when they cut to Jay, they're still talking, they're still having the dialogue. Yeah. So that's probably dubbed over in the post editing. So I mean, just a great way to put it. And not only that, just to put a capper on Clerks, because I mean, great movie. The reason it was filmed in black and white, it's because the convenience store fluorescent lights were too oversaturated. They were making the film look green. So Kevin Smith said, well, let's do black, or I guess one of his DPs or somebody had said, do it in black and white. It'll look like the security cam is capturing all this conversation. So, I mean, that was just a great way to spin it, and smart. It makes it work,
Yeah.
My selection was the boardroom massacre scene in Dogma. So the reason I always say God bless you when people sneeze is because, by the way,
because of this scene.
This scene.
But you didn't say God bless you when I sneezed. You're getting off light. I love that. Damon.
Best scene Smith has ever written, I think, and he gets two powerhouses to deliver the bulk of the dialogue in Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. Kevin Smith is mainly known for his witty banter and almost college theater quality back and forth chatter, but these were like powerful monologues. It's not the funniest scene, but it's definitely the best acted. I think Matt Damon was throwing 100 miles per hour the entire time. I mean, he was building up a disquietude. He was bubblegum chewing at Mike Ditka level. I mean, he was intense. He was so into the scene, and I love it. It's a big middle finger to corporate assholes and boardroom bullies, or anyone in any meeting you had to encounter who looked down on you or made you feel less than, because we all know they have their skeletons and they've done their things too. And Kevin Smith brought that to light. Like I said, he always wrote for the proletariat, and he always wrote for the working person. And I think this exemplifies it. I read the Dogma script before I watched the movie. I remember it was out on the internet. I remember this was the scene that captured my attention most of all. I mean, it was supposed to be written like a John Woo shoot 'em up. Like Matt Damon was supposed to go in there. It was supposed to be bloody and gory and people running around. They decided to do it behind closed doors, so you don't get to see the shooting that's happening after Matt Damon, opens up. He pulls out a gun and starts shooting the boardroom members. I believe Kevin Smith had asked Robert Rodriguez to direct this movie, but Rodriguez loved the script so much, he insisted Smith had to do it because it was so personal and forthcoming for him. I mean, I wonder how producer Harvey Weinstein felt reading this part, because I mean, he had to be wincing like, I do all this shit that all these fucking slime balls do, all the, the sex crimes and the money laundering that these guys do or whatever. Matt Damon is a great actor, but nobody does comically angry better than him, I think. Combine that with Ben Affleck, he has a very matter-of-fact delivery. You couldn't get two better actors for this scene. I mean, they were just both amazing. It's a good thing that, Ben Affleck had ties with Kevin Smith since the Mallrat days and, Chasing Amy. And I think Kevin Smith helped to produce Good Will Hunting. This is a mature Kevin Smith who is serving up dark comedy, and he's more aware of camera movement, feel, etc. This scene was, like I said, it was supposed to be gory. It was supposed to be shoot 'em up. I love the fact that the movie's theme is playing in the background. It gave it a haunting feeling, and it was just so perfect. I thought it was intense. It was dark. It was a different Kevin Smith, and I loved it. What do you guys think?
Dude, I remember watching this scene and kudos to you. I remember
Kudos.
everything that you said about like this movie, and we've already kind of talked about how this is mine, and I know Bob too. I don't know about you, Randy. It's not because it's in color or because it's, shot better or the
big name actors.
The huge names in this movie. I mean, big time actors. It was the story and this dark story that somehow fit into that Clerks universe. It was just really weird how awesome that it worked. But anyway, I remember watching it one time, and I decided to watch it with the commentary on, and they mentioned, like, going back to what you said, Randy, Kevin Smith, and they're talking about the scene. If you watch the scene, like, half of the boardroom guys are like, they look like bigger. I don't want to say muscular, but just like more like they don't look like boardroom people, old millionaire company people. Because going back to what Randy said,
he's your son, you sick fuck.
The scene was supposed to be a little bit more action, so they had these guys. These guys were supposed to be stunt actors. They were supposed to do these action scenes, and then when they didn't do that, they still kept them. So they all kind of look like they're just not regular boardroom people. So that's just a little tidbit on that. But the dialogue in here is great. The funny, subtle things. The Matt Damon's he plays Loki, sneezing and then like stopping and waiting, and like you see like an anger building in him, but then he continues. And it's like, I mean, it's just hilarious things. And then yes, Bartleby's character by Affleck, going through, I mean, they did perfect, and although just the little things thrown in by Damon was perfect, I thought the way that they set it up, I loved how the beginning they're just kind of sitting there in the boardroom, nobody's noticing him, he's carving an onion, a voodoo doll onion. They're just sitting there, and then suddenly somebody catches their attention. I think, what did they do, whistle or something? I don't remember.
No, he's like, hey, what are you doing in my boardroom? It's like,
and then they kind of turn, and it was like, oh, hey, by the way, and then that thing at the end thing, I love that, dude. Obviously the girl didn't die, and you're a clean soul, you're good, and but you didn't say.
You say God bless you.
Loki. He's like he was ready to cut a flight. I thought that it's perfect. It is a great scene, and this is a great movie. This whole movie. I know it caused a lot of issues. We all have our own relation. I'm not going to get into that, but anyway, great pick, Bob. I mean, great pick, Randy. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I think that the best part of it was he's like talking voodoo. If I believe hard enough, and he smashes the onion that he carved out of the guy, and the guy gets freaked out. He's like, I don't believe in voodoo. I thought that was really funny. It's a pretty clever, well-written scene. Affleck really laid back, delivering the lines. I like how he whispers in the guy, like he's talking shit about everybody, giving them their deepest, darkest secrets. I thought that it's a really good scene. It's really the cool thing about Dogma was that there's some seriousness, and then they cap it off with a funny joke, and then there's some seriousness, and they cap it off with a joke, and they cut between. But I love the writing in it. The whole thing was meant to be a satire, of course, but I love that certain things, they try to make serious, or they try to bring to light, and then they'll have some funniness that goes along with it. And I think this scene does it a lot too. I'm actually glad that they didn't do the whole shoot 'em up thing with them running around, just showing them in the background's kind of fucked up. And he was supposedly God's right hand. What I mean? God told him to destroy something, he destroys something. So you can kind of see that where he has that mentality, that character. So I'm glad they didn't show it. I think it's really cool that you could see it in the background. You can kind of see the shadows running around through it, and offering the girl gum when she's covered in blood at the end of it. I think it's really good. It's a really good scene, man. I don't know. There's a lot of great scenes in Dogma. I don't know if it's the best scene in Dogma, but it's a really, really great scene.
When this movie came out, I don't remember how old I was, but anyway, I remember even going to church, and the priest, before the end of the sermon, before the end of everything, he was like, oh, just by the way, he mentioned this movie. I remember he said, like, hey, I heard about this movie Dogma, and he was a chill guy. He was a chill guy, so he was real mellow. and he said it's, and I remember him being like, it's just garbage, and you shouldn't go see it. Like, he was real chill about it. It made me want to see it.
Man, made me want to see it.
I was afraid when we talked about the cover art for this week's episode that Bob was going to recommend Creative Little Pill to do the Buddy Christ, and I was like, I don't know if we can post that.
Why not? That hilarious.
Yeah, I think we would have been all right.
I want to get that hanging on my rearview mirror.
I mean, great scenes all around, guys. Last word on Kevin Smith movies, what they mean to you, and your thoughts on them.
I don't know, man. Tarantino's one of my favorite. I mean, he's one of my favorite writers. The scripts that he writes and the clever dialogue and all that, I just find like he's kind of untouchable to me. But Kevin Smith does give off that great writing as well. Very smart, very calculated, extremely clever, and I love the fact that he's an extremely smart individual. I mean, if you read some of the stuff he comes up with and some of the lines, he's extremely smart and clever. But then he'll throw something that's like such an everyman stupid little dick and fart joke that just like gets your attention and makes you laugh, and you're like, how could a guy that's like, so smart and so intellectual and so, like, that's why Jason Mewes, I don't know if you know that Jason Mewes, when he wanted to start buddying around with. He started going over to Kevin Smith's house, and he was like, yeah, because these guys use big words. And they're like talking about, he's like, they use big words, and they wouldn't just say like, oh, it's a great movie. They'd be like, oh no, the director of this movie and the writer so-and-so had this great line, and Jason Mewes fell in love with that. He was like, these guys Kevin Smith is just so smart, and I wanted to be around that to learn so much. So I think that's crazy that he's on a different level of writing and comedy, and for him to be like an everyman and like a teenager dick and fart joke, and then also have something that's so smart and so well written and thought out subtle joke is just really, really good. It reminds me a lot of Tarantino and reminds me a lot of Mel Brooks.
Yeah, man, I agree with that big time. He's very, very thoughtful individual, I believe. He's just got a sense of humor, and that's pretty awesome, I think. And these movies were very, very funny to me, and very smart and clever and just different in all their way. And I think nowadays, he's older now, obviously. He had that health scare.
Yeah.
And he's completely changed his life. And at the same time too, he fully recognizes, and I think Randy said this, that, he can't do these movies anymore. He can't write these jokes anymore. I mean, I don't know if he wants to, but he obviously can't. The movies won't get made. So I think, can you say like is he done? I don't know. I think he's always going to want to do something, but I don't know if we're ever going to get the same joy out of a Kevin Smith project that we did when we watched Clerks and Dogma and Mallrats and Chasing Amy, and that's kind of sad, I guess. But these movies are always, I think they're highly underrated. I think they're very smart and witty, and people should have given them more of a chance. And I think people look at them now and you realize that those that maybe didn't give them a chance back then to see, how funny they are. And Kevin Smith's a good dude. He really is. I think he's very funny. I'd recommend, I have his book. I thought it was a very good book. Tough shit. Life advice from a fat, lazy slob who did good. I think it's a great read, and you should go check that out yourself. I did want to say real quick before, just to add to Bob's scene, I forgot to mention that during Bob's scene, one of the greatest songs ever is playing in the background. Supernova's Chewbacca song.
Oh yeah,
Chewbacca.
Chewbacca.
Yeah. I tell you, that scene had a little bit of everything, man. Had a little bit of everything.
I will say this: great artists evoke dialogue and controversy. Kevin Smith is he's like the modern Mark Twain. He's this raconteur.
That's what I was going to say, dude. I was going to mention that. Yeah.
Who makes more money doing the talk circuit, and he'll talk for hours because he loves to do that. He does more talking about his movies than anybody. And a lot of people see it as maybe pompous, but he's relating to his fans because he is a fan himself. And I think that when I think of Kevin Smith, I obviously think about my best friend who was a huge Kevin Smith fan. He's no longer around. And I think about a lot of great memories of just like, wow, like people could write like this, they could talk like this, and people will pay to watch this. And he's like, at the time in the 90s, 94, when I first, I guess 96, when I first saw Clerks, it came out in 94. I was, like, wow, these are like people my age, and they're making these jokes, and it's incredible because you've never seen dialogue like that. I think he's an incredibly affable guy. He's super smart, super intelligent, knowledgeable. And yes, has he made some bad movies? Yes. The Jay and Silent Bob reboot, I did not like, but that's okay. I mean, Kevin Smith, with those 4 movies, he hit home runs. And I know every movie has a controversy. Like, Chasing Amy, they're saying, whoa, it took, it took Joey Lauren Adams' character, who was gay, to find the right guy so she won't be gay anymore. And a lot of people came down on that and said, well, that is just, the white, straight, savior saving the day. And, the whole thing with Dogma about the, Catholicism and, but everything evokes conversation and dialogue. And I think Kevin Smith has gone back to realize, hey, I stand by that, but I've also grown as an artist. I've also grown as a writer. I'm a father. I almost died from a heart attack a few years ago. I'm a vegan now. I do things differently. And he still has his finger on the pulse of everything. And that's why I love him so much. I will forever be, if you just gave me those 4 movies, those first 4, I would be happy because I think he's done enough.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, dude.
To us, he's made, 4 or 5 great movies. It's hard enough to make one. I mean, so if that's it, if his career is only those 4 or 5 movies, that's a pretty good fucking career.
I want to ask you, this is Kevin Smith related. I was listening to an interview with Bill Simmons, and they asked Kevin Smith, since he's a Jersey guy and all his movies take place in New Jersey, he asked him about his Jersey Mount Rushmore, and he said it was Bon Jovi, Bruce Springsteen, Frank Sinatra, and Bruce Willis. Let me ask you guys this. Who are your Texas Mount Rushmore? I got my 4. Can I share my 4?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you got to go with George Strait from Poteet, Texas.
Oh, for sure.
Willie Nelson from Abbott. I think Tom Landry, hometown from Mission. He's from our area. And then this one you're probably going to shit on, but Selena from Corpus. Those are my Mount Rushmore. Who do you guys have as your Mount Rushmore?
It's George Strait and Willie Nelson. I think you nailed it with those 2 guys. Billy Gibbons, maybe Billy Gibbons. Fuck, who's the biggest sports star in Texas history? Earl fucking Campbell. You know what I mean? I would say Emmitt Smith, but he left to go to the Arizona Cardinals.
But he wasn't born in Texas, though, right?
No, he wasn't born in Texas.
Florida guy, yeah.
But I'm saying Earl Campbell, maybe like maybe a Tom Landry. I like Earl Campbell, Willie Nelson, who used to eat and party together, so that's kind of cool. Maybe McConaughey. Joseph.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I forgot about him.
I fucking love Matthew McConaughey.
Uvalde.
Billy Gibbons is just fucking amazing. He's one of my favorites of all time, so I think I'd throw him up there too. So if I could, George Strait, Willie Nelson, Earl Campbell, and what if I had Billy fucking Gibbons? That's my go-to.
On the spot, I probably couldn't put this list together, but for sure for 2, I'd say obviously Texas Jesus, McConaughey, and Willie Nelson for sure. The other ones, I mean, I'd probably, I'd think about Nolan Ryan. I'd think about, like Bob, Billy Gibbons. I'd really have to think.
Nolan fucking Ryan. Nolan Ryan might have to be on there, bro. He might.
I'd really have to think of that, but at least the 2 I know for sure are McConaughey and Willie Nelson.
I still find it funny that you chose Selena, even though you hated her TV show.
I love it.
He's like, I hate it.
Wait, which Selena?
I watched after. I'm on season 5 of season 2, episode 8.
So the only Selena, the original Selena.
There's another Selena too.
There is another Selena, and we just watched her documentary, my wife and I. It's actually really good, and it gives you a good insight on her career and what she's gone through.
Gomez?
Yeah, Selena Gomez.
Okay.
But Selena Quintanilla is the Mount Rushmore now.
Yeah, so Selena Quintanilla is amazing.
Yeah, so good picks, everybody. So, and that's our show, everyone. Listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Hit us up and let us know, what is your favorite Kevin Smith scene? What is the best Kevin Smith scene? Most importantly, let us know what you think about the show. You may reach us at formidableopponents@gmail.com and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by searching for Formidable Opponents. We want to thank Creative Little Pill for the great artwork this week. As always, please follow her on Instagram at Creative Little Pill. Please rate and review us on Apple and Spotify, and join us next episode as we debate best musical artist that went solo. So for Bob and Joseph, this is Randall. We'll see you next week.
I'm 37?
Christ didn't come to Earth to give us the willies. He came to help us out.
It's funny, man.